Good Friday evening, everybody. Happy Black Friday. Happy post-Thanksgiving shenanigans. Whatever it is you got into yesterday, I hope you enjoyed the Thanksgiving holiday. We're back here in the Digital Weather Center over at News 6, and I'm meteorologist David Nazario with you for your News 6 weather at 9:30. We've got a couple different things I want to talk about tonight. We're going to have a great show tonight. I hope all is well in your neck of the woods. It's a pretty solid Friday night, as a matter of fact, as well. When I pulled up to the station, maybe about, I'd say going on about 2 hours ago, it was really nice outside. The winds fairly tame, fairly modest. It wasn't blistery or blustery outside, and the air temperatures were pretty cozy. I could definitely go for some hot chocolate or maybe a hot coffee before we get waist deep into the weather here momentarily. So thank you all so much for joining me over on News 6 Plus, and a warm welcome to all of us over on the News 6 YouTube channel. Let's go ahead and get started with some headlines, because there's definitely some interesting evolutions that I want to talk to everybody about. So this is what you need to know. Go ahead and break it down one piece by piece together over the next few days. We've got maybe one more chilly morning. And by that, I mean, for our northern counties, we could wake up in the low to mid 40s. The Gainesville area of Alachua County still forecast to possibly dip into the upper 30s, but nobody out there is expected to come anywhere near freezing. And even once you factor in the wind chill, those feels like temperatures are going to be a bit warmer than they were this morning when we started the day. Now, as you can see, the warm up is going to begin this weekend. As of tomorrow, you'll notice in our afternoon high temperatures, we are going to rapidly start to climb the totem pole of Central Florida temperatures all over again. And then one big thing I'm really watching that I'm kind of sitting here scratching my head about is our pattern going to turn a little bit more rainy as we start the month of December? Drought conditions are already inevitably starting to build in for the western half of the Florida Peninsula, and we actually have severe to extreme dry conditions already in place throughout portions of our Panhandle and the Big Bend area. Goes to show night and day difference between 2024, where we had several hurricanes landfalling in that area, as well as a slew of non-tropical storm systems throughout the spring, the summer, the fall, and the proceeding winter. Now this year, we really just didn't have much of anything, and as a result, the drought conditions have returned. And I'm going to walk you through that step by step as we get further into the show. So let's break down the water vapor satellite together. I love this part. This is where we can kind of use a bit of analyst interpretation. We've got a lot going on here. I know it's just a bunch of funky looking colors from the golds and the yellows draped across our area, extending into the western Atlantic. But then the further west you go, look at how the shades of blue quickly ramp up. We've got a lot of moisture out there from Chicago, St. Louis, down to even getting into Atlanta, Mobile, Alabama, back through the Dallas, Houston area, and then up through the front range of the Rockies as another storm system comes down. We went from talking the tropical freight train to the unstable wave freight train. And when I say things like unstable wave, it's because the jet stream is a little aggravated. We've got cold duking it out with warmer temperatures on opposing sides, and as a result, that's what gives us our counterclockwise spins that turn into our winter storms, which we're inevitably going to start tracking here very soon, if not within the next week or so, especially given what's on the horizon on a bunch of our computer models. So like I said, for the temperatures outside right now, we're doing pretty good, most of us anyways. The further northwest you go, once again, Gainesville, we're already flirting with the possibility of dropping into the upper 30s within the next hour or two. Ocala sitting at 48 degrees, the Villages at 47. Wildwood a little on the chillier side as well, coming in at 45, and then the rest of us around the I-4 corridor, and the further east you go, we're looking at the low 50s to even the low 60s. Brevard County sitting pretty right now. We've got some low 60s out there with a little bit of a nippy wind in the air, so I'd imagine if you're out and about on this Friday night, it's pretty comfortable out there, especially getting that little bit of warm feed from the waters just off the immediate east coast. When you look at the current wind chill as well, Not doing too bad. Tallahassee, Jacksonville, outside of our immediate viewing area, but still, regardless, the state of Florida, still, kind of getting into those colder temperatures right now, and those winds are going to prevail for at least the next 48 hours as high pressure to our north meanders towards the east coast, kind of sitting itself over the mid-Atlantic states between about Virginia, West Virginia, and North Carolina. That's actually what's going to help to transition our wind flow from a northerly component to a more of an onshore, coming in off the Atlantic, easterly component over the next 2 or so days. When you look at the temperature change, as well as a couple things I want you to notice here, and I'll go ahead and take myself out of the equation for now, and I'll stop the loop so I can do some drawing with you. And I think I can take us a step layer or a step further, and we'll take it to a bit of a zoomed out perspective. So check this out. If you notice what's happening over us, we're kind of in a bit of a neutral point. I use this terminology a lot. It's called a col, C-O-L. If you look at the wind flow over central Florida, we're kind of stalled out. If you notice, we've got winds coming in out of the north that suddenly transition towards the east. We've got a little bit of a pattern of winds coming in out of the south, and then they also transition off towards the east. Then we've got winds that also spread out and try to escape over the Atlantic, and then another piece of that does the same when you look at your southerly wind flow coming in over the bottom half of the peninsula. That right there is called a col, C-O-L. It's a neutral point that kind of helps us forecasters determine where it is the air is changing. Here's our polar high pressure that's going to continue to move off towards the east. Let me go ahead and clear the ink for you so we don't get too crowded here on the discussion. But see that line right in through here, the battling of the two colors, the blue shades on the east side and then the yellow-orange shades on the west side? That's exactly what's going to happen here in the state of Florida. So if we take this high pressure and we move it someplace else, shout out to my SpongeBob fans out there, if we put that high pressure up in through here, those same orange and yellow shades are going to follow right behind it as the wind flow, the clockwise spinning around it, helps to draw in additional moisture off the Atlantic and pull up some of that subtropical to tropical warmth that's to our south right now that got pushed down towards the south after that cold front came racing through yesterday. So you can already see that the wheels of change are beginning. It's just currently off to the west, but it will be making its way here to central Florida very soon. Here's a quick look at your forecast lows for tonight. Gainesville, like I said, getting down into those upper 30s. Might even drop a little bit more than what's forecasted right here, given that we're right on the cusp of 40, getting ready to transition to 39 maybe any moment now. The rest of us, especially hugging that I-4 corridor from Polk County all the way up to Volusia, Flagler County, if you take that, slice the state in half diagonally, we're going to see the warmer temperatures stay on the east side of that. Anywhere from the low to upper 50s, maybe some low 60s out there once again in the Cocoa Beach, the Port Canaveral, Patrick Space Force Base area of Brevard County. So honestly, if you're looking for some warmth, either head out to Brevard County this weekend, or if you happen to reside out there, then, well, lucky for you, you're not having to deal with some of the frigid temperatures that our northern counties have had to deal with. And when you look at for our forecast temps for tomorrow, you'll see we're still staying at below that average threshold. The average threshold, or the temperature, I should say, is typically somewhere around 73 to 76 degrees this time of year during the warmest portions of the afternoon. We're going to be a couple degrees below that. So while you may have to throw a jacket or a couple layers on as you set foot out the door tomorrow morning, depending on how long you like to stay in bed or sleep in, if you have the opportunity to do so, maybe even crack open the windows, kill the AC, let some of that fresh cold air come in as the sun comes up tomorrow. I love that personally. I don't know about you all. Let me know in the chat right now, but I definitely had a ball this afternoon doing some cleaning in the household before headed in here to News 6. I just had all the windows open. You could just smell that crisp, dry air outside. It's magnificent if you ask me. And then when you look at our temperatures for the day tomorrow, you'll notice as we get towards the coldest portion of the morning, not too shabby out there. Mid to upper 40s and low 50s with some 60s out there, as a matter of fact, as well. Afternoon high temperatures coming in pretty comfortable. I think the model is underdoing it here. It might be doing something called under forecasting the temperatures. I think we will be a little bit on the warmer side than this. A lot more of us will probably touch that 70-degree mark tomorrow afternoon. And then watch as we get into Sunday morning, an even greater difference. As the sun comes up, we could potentially see 60s across the board with some 80s sneaking in there for the afternoon high temperatures on Sunday. And then forget about it as we get into Monday. That is when we are definitely going to be back into that staple Florida pattern with some possible rains lurking on the immediate horizon. So don't go anywhere, folks. We're going to take a quick 3-minute break, and then I'll talk all things rain with you all, and then take one last look at the tropics, especially since this will be our last 9:30 discussion before we officially say bon voyage to our 2025 hurricane season. So don't go anywhere, folks. I'll be right back with you here in about 3 minutes. All right, welcome back to News 6 Weather at 9:30. Thanks for sticking around for our quick little 3-minute intermission. Now, let's go ahead and wrap up our temperature segment as we begin to climb out of this latest polar plunge that we found ourselves in over the last couple days and talk about not only the warmth, but what could possibly bring some much-needed rainfall to the state of Florida and an abundance of the Southeast altogether. I will disclaimer right now, models are very bearish and very frugal with how much of this actually makes it into the greater Central and South Florida area. I do think there's a pretty decent shot that we're going to get at least some rain out of the next couple systems that I'm pinpointing, but it may not be as widespread as our neighbors north of Alachua County, north of Putnam County, Flagler County. I think this could be a major rain event for the Panhandle, Big Bend, and northern Florida, and then we'll get a little bit of that bleeding over as we get into Central and South Florida. So let's take take a quick glance at our temperature trend. This kind of tells the story. We're in for a bit of a bumpy ride. If you notice here, for Saturday, we're getting closer to that average threshold, and then by Sunday, we're going to be skyrocketing back to the warmer temperatures as we end up on that western side of the same high pressure I was showing you in the winds earlier before we took our first break. Then, as that first frontal system comes down, look at the drop-off once again between Tuesday and Wednesday, going from a high of 81 down to a high of about 73 for Wednesday. Then by Thursday and Friday, we're working our way back up to about average temperatures, anywhere between 75 to about 77 degrees. And I'm going to step outside of the weather realm just for a second and kind of dabble into my fitness side. I'm a certified personal trainer, and I just want to suggest right out of the rip, looking at this, not only from a meteorological perspective, but a physiological perspective. This is why they say this is cold and flu season for sure. This whiplash of temperatures going back and forth, back and forth. Couple that with if you have strenuous activity on a day-to-day, whether that be in the gym or just have a pretty rough day at work, or you're running low on sleep, your stress levels are a little higher than normal, your immune system begins to diminish, just like the colder temperatures tend to do here in Central Florida. Because all the warm water around us, it kind of changes with the environment. So does our body. So I just want to do the shameless plug right now from a personal trainer perspective and emphasize to everybody, take care of yourselves. We're going to start to see more of these frequent cooler blasts as we go through December, and especially after the new year, once we get into the heart of the winter season, January and February. I myself can testify to this. If you were to watch any of our old home videos from around the Christmas, New Year's time, you'd hear me in the month of November, totally normal. And then when my dad would bust out the old handy-dandy camcorder right in time for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, you'd hear me like this because the cold air got to me and I didn't take care of myself. So definitely keep up with your vitamins, minerals, get plenty of rest, eat those healthier foods if you can. Make sure to make some time for you, that rest, recovery, and a little bit of light exercise never hurt anybody, especially since we are looking at some pretty solid weather, I'd say about 75 to 80% of the time. Now, with that being said, Climate Prediction Center says as we go through early December, we are going to miss out on a couple of the more recent, or I should say in the short distant future, some of the upcoming cold plunges that are going to be occurring for much of the rest of the central and eastern United States, keeping us above average between the 4th and the 8th of December. I'm going to wrap this into a nice gifted bundle and say the first week or two of December could be a little bit more on the mild side. Not too cold, but not exactly extensively hot either, just right in the middle, but above the average that we would typically see here in the Sunshine State for the month of December. Now, the rainfall outlook, look at this. We're actually bathed in a very familiar sight of green colors. You can see it extending through not only the rest of the southeast for our neighboring states from Louisiana back up into the Carolinas and Virginia, but even as far south as maybe right around the I-4 corridor. It kind of looks like they drew their graphic mimicking I-4 right there. You can kind of take a clean line and draw I-4 itself from Brevard County down to southern Pinellas and Hillsborough counties there on the Gulf Coast of Florida, and this is why. So let's do a little bit of jet stream analysis right now. If you notice, we've got lots going on out here. There's a ton of different green, yellow, and red patches out there. You can see we've got a little bit of influence from what's called the subtropical jet coming in out of the central equatorial Pacific. And I'll go ahead and stop the clock and we'll draw some of this in together so I don't lose any of you in this almost lava lamp look of different colors here. So this right in through here is a finger of our subtropical jet. You can usually identify this because it doesn't really flow towards the north too often. You don't get too many troughs out of it. Notice that it's only a dome of clockwise turning. It's kind of like the top portion of a clock. You got your 10, 11, and 12 o'clock positions there. 1, 2, getting into your 3 o'clock position there. That would be your subtropical jet there. And because we have a bit of a contention point between our polar front jet in through here, This is where a large bulk of our most disturbed weather is going to occur. That's the battle zone, as they like to say in the OG Twister film, with a little bit of breakaway energy hanging out off the coast of Southern California. So, needless to say, a lot of ruckus going on in the upper levels of our environment. It's this next storm system right here that's moving through the central and northern Rockies, kind of getting into the Snake River Valley of Idaho at this point in time. This is Sunday at noon. As we begin our warm up down here in Florida, thanks to the ridge building in, we're going to be tracking that next feature on the horizon coming across the United States. So if you watch as it reaches its grasp out of Canada, it's going to merge with our subtropical jet. Looking right here. Look at that big old trough just merging with the two branches of the jet. We have an enormous swath of strong winds high up in the atmosphere that's just going to aggravate the low levels all through this corner of the United States, the whole southeast quadrant, if you will. And that's where we're going to be watching for that major storm system to try to blossom over portions of Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana. Let me show you that right now. So let's play the loop out. Spoiler alert, it was already fast forwarded to the end there. So there goes that next push of cold air with the interaction between that subtropical jet stream and the polar jet stream. So if you notice over Florida, the wind arrows, the little white and blue arrows there, are coming in off the Atlantic. That's why I'm thinking maybe about a 20% chance of rain that from Flagler, Volusia to Brevard County, we could get some sneaky showers, if not small little pockets of rainfall that try to come in during the afternoon and early evening hours. Then as you fast forward the clock, we get into early next week. Look what starts to happen. Notice that south of the Great Lakes into the Midwest, we're looking up there near Missouri, southern portions of Iowa, Illinois, Indiana. We've got that blue strand. That's the snowfall with the next plunge of cold air that's coming down. But then near the Houston, Dallas, and southwestern Louisiana area, look at that counterclockwise spin. Definitely not tropical. We just got a lot of jet stream action kind of colliding all at once in that corner of the world. And as a result, we're going to get the air to start spinning. As it does so, it's going to really begin to build into a more definitive low-pressure center, drawing in cold air from up north and lots of warmth and tropical moisture from down across the south and the western Atlantic. So by the time we get into Tuesday and then early Wednesday, this system is going to be absolutely ripping up the east coast of the United States, trying to begin to maybe take on the early makings of our first nor'easter, possibly. Look at all that snowfall up there near New York, the Manhattan area, New Jersey, wrapping back into New York State, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, all the areas up there in the Northeast and the upper mid-Atlantic states. The higher you go for portions of West Virginia, even eastern Kentucky, you might see some snowfall over the higher terrain features. But then us down here in Florida, we're watching the tail end of that front as it comes down. And you can see that when we come in for a bit of a closer look using our in-house clouds and rain model. There go the possible showers for late Sunday, early Monday. And then by Tuesday, here comes that front coming across. See how everybody could get in on a little of the rain action? Our models are definitely back and forth with this. I'll admit the rainfall totals on both the Euro and the GFS are honestly unimpressive. It almost makes me feel like I shouldn't be talking about this, but given the performance of our computer models with the last few bouts of rains, thunderstorms, and possible severe weather that we've had work through in the last month or two, I definitely want us to watch this because where the low pressure system is forecast to form, it's actually going to be coming in a lot further to the south than the north. So if it were much further to the north over the upper United States with that front dragging back down towards the south, maybe not as much rain. But the fact that the actual storm itself is going to be much further to the south, we might have a greater shot at bringing some of that moisture and lift into the state of Florida, bringing up our rain chances for pretty much everybody. Now, I will admit, got a little excited there, carried away. We're going to take a very fast 3-minute break, and I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. We'll touch base with the 2025 hurricane season, take a little bit of inventory, and then I promise, if you've got any questions, have them ready after this 3-minute intermission. I'll answer you as soon as we come right back. And here we are for the final leg of News 6 weather at 9:30. I've got about maybe a minute or so I'm kind of glad that we don't really have any questions in the chat this evening. I'll go ahead and take a quick glance, but I wanted to show you this before we wrap up, especially since this is the last time we will be doing a 9:30 chat in the calendar hurricane season. So this was 2025, very El Nino-esque in our storm tracks. We had nothing in the Gulf. We had one stray system that randomly flared up Barry in the Bay of Campeche, and only one system actually made it to the United States, being Tropical Storm Chantal in the early leg of July. So all in all, a below average hurricane season in terms of our names, but we still managed to wrap up in that above average ACE threshold per the energy units that we look at based on each individual tropical system that forms out there. Unfortunately, Melissa was the most impactful and probably the strongest, if not the absolute strongest, of 2025. Happened to be the one that actually struck some major landmasses out there. But thankfully, the folks down in Jamaica, Cuba, the Bahamas, and Turks and Caicos are quickly piling through the rubble and bouncing back with such generous resiliency, I would say. Operations to help relieve and rescue those deeply afflicted by Melissa are underway, and they're going to continue probably into the new year and some change, but thankfully we've got nothing but good news coming out of that area ever since. And I'm already beginning to take a deep dive into what next hurricane season could look like, especially since we've got some large-scale patterns across the northern hemisphere, across the globe, that are going to be evolving as we go over the next several months together. We've still got that predictability barrier to get through as we go through the first quarter of 2026. However, I do think that we're going to be in for some twists, some turns, and some possible surprises, not only with next hurricane season, but just the weather in general. So thank you very much for everything that's been... I'm sorry, I'm looking at the chat. Just want to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Oh, of course, you're very welcome. I appreciate that a lot. And Free Thinker, you're very welcome as well. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I got to go ahead and kill this live stream. I got a little ahead of myself on this Friday night. It's just how much fun I have talking weather with you all. But I got to hit another 3-minute break before we run into the 10 o'clock show. So I hope you have a spectacular rest of your Friday night. Have a beautiful weekend if I don't get the opportunity to talk to you all. And we'll see you again very soon. But until then, you know the famous drill. This is the Digital Weather Center, signing out.